to record when you are. Okay, hi everybody. Welcome. I am Amy Qualls. I am a technical writer for several groups in Create. And after the last few milestones, Pedro and I wanted to talk to all of you about some of these small but really implementable things that we spotted when working together that we think more teams can implement when working with a UX person or working with a technical writer. So if you want to go to the first slide. So number one, when dealing with a technical writer, you may need to coach them through this part of the process. Give up on the one right answer. There are many ways that UI text can be written, and we can always iterate. We don't have to get it 100% right in the first try. Technical writers tend to look for the absolute right answer. And what you see here was me realizing Pedro and I actually don't overlap that much during our work days. I thought, well, what if I just gave him a set of choices and suggested that he mix and match and pick what worked for him and then carry on? And it turned out that was absolutely the right answer. It sped up our work, and it really decreased friction between the two of us. And if you want to go to the next slide. Pedro contributed something here that I had never seen anyone else do at GitLab. And this felt like a tiny piece of magic that I'd never seen before. He started leaving comments in the merge requests and issues that we're working on together. And I noticed, as you can see here, there are color changes in the text. How did you, this is sorcery. How did you do this? And it turns out that this is absolutely something that you can incorporate all the time. If you mark the words or letters that you want to include with a bracket and a plus, and the things you want to take out with a bracket and a minus, boom, colors. This was the thing I did not know I wanted out of GitLab. This was so good. Most of the changes that I provide to my designers, they're tiny. It's so easy to miss a period or an apostrophe or a single letter. I don't know how much time this saved because it meant that we just got stuff right on the first try. So I feel like this is my secret weapon when helping other teams put UI text together. Pedro, if you've got anything you want to add here?
No, yeah, it's interesting because for me, this markdown notation, I don't know when I learned to use this, but it just felt natural for me to start using this. And you're right, actually the moment that I started using this, now I remember, was when and I think a lot of designers will probably relate to this, is when I started out at GitLab. Every time I was proposing UI text and it had an apostrophe, so in this case, the what's has an apostrophe between the T and the S, and I was determined to push forward the idea of typographer quote marks. And the engineers could never see that I was wanting them to use the typographer quote marks instead of what we usually call the dumb quote marks, which are like vertical instead of curly. And yeah, I saw someone using this for something else. I think it was code actually. And I thought, why not use this to point the attention to exactly what I wanted to encourage. It didn't work in the end. I think some engineers noticed it, but along the way, working in the IDE, the typographer quote was not implemented in many places. So I have since, ignored and I'm not continuing that battle of typographer quotes.
It's hard to overstate the simplicity that these two items brought when we use them together. One of how we would use it, Pedro or I would start off with an idea for a line of UI text. And if you're willing to give multiple examples for things you would be okay with to see in the UI and highlight the tiny changes in each one so that it's obvious to the reader, oh, this one's using a different verb, or this one's using an apostrophe instead of spelling out the two words. It eases comprehension and it really cuts down on back and forth. And UI text discussions have enough back and forth as it is.
Exactly. Yeah, thanks, Amy, for that. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about how these pieces that Amy was describing, how they fitted into the work that we had at hand and how we solved that and how UI text helped solve some problems. So creating patterns for create, and how did we come up with specific patterns for UI text? So the context here was, as you see on the left-hand side of the slide here, we have or had multiple messages for when a merge request is blocked. So one of the messages says that fast forward merge is not possible. Then the one below says, before this can be merged, one or more threads must be resolved. And then another one is when the pipeline is blocked. And some of them are very clear about what is the problem and what is the resolution. Others, not so much. You have to look around the UI and get more context to understand that these relate to the merge request being blocked. So you cannot merge it, you cannot proceed forward. And there is lack of structure. So actually when on the right-hand side, when I was thinking about a possible pattern for us to use for all of these different messages that come from different areas of the product, some of them come from pipelines, others come from approval rules and so on. I actually started using what Amy was describing before of providing multiple choices. So this is something I had learned from her because we were having this collaboration. I thought, well, if Amy is providing me multiple choices and we're thinking through this together, I might as well do the same, which could provide a better outcome. So, and it's great because compared to, providing a user interface design, collaborating and iterating on text is very cheap. It's async friendly, and it has, most importantly, a low barrier to entry. Anyone can easily contribute, understand, because they would, it's easy to read and easy to write, basically. So yeah, this all translated into something like this, where before the first image that we have here, before we had a long and complex message. In this case, we had a disabled merge button, and it then said, hey, before this can be merged, one or more threads must be resolved. Now what we have is a consistent structure with more concise messages and simpler to read messages that all follow the same format. Merge blocked, colon, and then something must be something. Like in this case, it's all threads must be resolved. And now me and Amy were doing this work of applying this pattern to all of the messages that appear here. And next, maybe what we can even do is remove UI elements because the text is doing all of the explanation needed. So in this case, we might not even need the disabled merge button so that users don't have to think twice why the merge button is disabled and then read the text next to it. So this would allow us to focus on the message and also the resolution on the right-hand side with the buttons. And yeah, as part of this work, one of the things that we ended up doing and having a lot of fun was introducing more humanity in the product. So in this case, at the moment where you're merging the merge request, we started out with the message that is shown on the left-hand side, merging, drum roll, please. It was kind of a placeholder message that I had in Figma when I was designing some things. And I thought, hey, Amy, what do you think? Will this fly under your watch? And she said, yeah, let's try it. Why not? It's the right moment. It's fun. It's not detrimental. I think it's good that we do it. And right after it, I think it was on the same day or the day after, other developers contributed 5 more messages that were added shortly after. One of them being the one on the right. This is going to be great with an emoji. And maybe later, I'm planning to ask some users on Twitter to contribute their own messages, since the sky is the limit, so that everyone can really contribute and see these messages rotate every time they merge. We want to keep this presentation short, so I'll go and wrap it up. Teamwork makes the dream work. The real, I think, message that we want to pass on to everyone that is watching this presentation today is that we need to be less reactive when it comes to UI text. That is not always possible, but when we dedicate time, space, and we are intentional about the collaboration between technical writers and product designers, it can flourish and we can have much better results. And that has happened because we made the space and time to work on these messages, and not when we're already inside of merge requests or inside of a specific design. Amy, anything else you'd like to add?
I mentioned something in chat that I did want to call out. We learned as a side benefit, you actually can't put emoji in the middle of a message. It has to be at the beginning or the end. It's a translation bugbear. Just trust me on this one. I would add that asking a technical writer to work this way, meaning providing multiple suggestions at once, it might be new to them, and it's not something that they're probably going to do by default. But you can always ask and say, can you give me some ideas with different tone, different verbs, different nouns, and start the process of expecting multiple options instead of just, here's the right answer.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, everyone. We do have some discussion points on the next slide. I don't know if we were going to stop the recording or not, but thank you, everyone.